Despite the work of Durkheim and that suicidal behaviour is a complex phenomenon, it is my observation that the focus of suicide prevention efforts is on treating mental illness. I consider this distracts from other risk factors, such as physical illness and social issues. Particularly in relation to unemployment in the developed world, mental health is often reported as a precursor. For example, Alamy et al. 2020, and in the popular media, stories like that of Simone Biles. This elevation of mental health as a predominant risk factor and unidirectional view of the relationship between mental health and unemployment comes from a lens of power, viewing negative core beliefs as bringing about unemployment and can maintain inequality. According to Harmer et al. 2021, the CDC's mortality records for 2017 reveal 50% of deaths by suicide were by people with no known psychiatric illness. This makes sense to me, prominently but most suicides occur in the developing world, where there is water and food insecurity. I compare this to people in the developed world who have chronic unemployment. This is about the person's life being threatened, about feeling trapped, being controlled, the meeting of culpability for suicide from Joiner's theory. This compares to people who struggle with emotional regulation, for whom skills training can improve the situation. Based on latest research findings and from personal experience, complementing lived experience stories of mental illness with stories of people getting through from life events. Secondly, studies, for example, Almeida et al., report behavioural activation to be equivalent to medication and slightly superior to cognitive therapy in the treatment of depression. And importantly, it is amendable to developing countries. The next step, I think, is to find out the conditions of helpful behavioural activation. And in this presentation, I provide the example of a journey to a volunteer role. Here I photo experiences that I would not have on a typical day versus a day not working, and provide my thoughts. It is good to see the remnants of the sunrise. Even though this is not always, the morning still has a refreshing feel to it. Something must have happened here. Curiosity about what is happening in my community. I feel like a sense of belonging, that I'm doing what everyone else is doing at this time, going to work. Signs of change in my community, moving on, a sign of living and progressing. I wonder what it will be like when it is finished. Something novel. Keeping up to date and seeing how products have changed over the years. This makes me think or reflect on the existence of others and how that might be for them, like a feeling of connectivity, part of something other than myself. I like the greenery and orderless cleanliness here, and like a feeling of openness and of a spacious area. Now comes the novel again, certainly a change of scenery here. Trying a new brand of coffee, and I guess just feeling part of things, part of the world. Really like the red plastic glasses, and again cleanliness. Again, just feeling a part of something, alive, refreshed. The world is full of surprises. Even in winter, we can find something in nature that has some beauty if we look hard enough. The colours, the patterns and the texture. Again, these photos just make me feel up to date with society. Nice to be out in the fresh air. It happens to be sea air in this case. Productivity and a surprise element. It is not mundane. Next, there is a change in the environment, even if it's small. Life is going on. Best of all, though, is the connection and being part of something. Closed in, looking at the world from the inside. The day consists of catching up with the news, playing a game, coffee at home, TV, rain. So in sum, the engagement with the world is different, from a distance rather than direct engagement, and has no real meaning beyond myself. I'm not going anywhere physically and not contributing or achieving anything. Not productive. On going out, there are again novel things to take notice of. However, whilst I'm out, I notice that what differs between the 2 days is the environment and activities of people around me, so retail shops, coffee shops with outdoor seating, and how that impacts me. Despite the similarities, the environmental context is different. Activities have a different purpose and meaning. In sum, the key parts of behavioural activation for me are the meaning of the activity, being productive in some way, change of scene and the connection. Also, I feel aware that I'm unemployed, and there's something about that I'm not moving forward, like an anxiety that is ever present. Practical interventions can lead to reductions in suicide. For example, Okado et al. 2020 reported an intervention focused on improving people's employment situation has reduced suicide in Japan. However, post-COVID, this may be challenging, not least solving the insecurities those of the developed world face. Given that most people have control over passive suicide ideation and do not attempt suicide, Harmer et al. 2021, subject to suicide risk assessment, I suggest that further work developing behavioural activation programs with those experiencing uncontrollable stress. This may not only break suicide ideation, but rejuvenate communities. As well, add to the scarce literature base into the relationship between precarious unemployment and stress, Balibar et al. 2021. Indeed, for those experiencing a true mental illness, a third factor, context, being added to the well-established combination of therapy and medication may lead to best outcomes. Finally, I must say that I do not question the seriousness of mental illness and the benefits of medication. For example, given the findings of Delmato et al. 2020, the availability of lithium. Thank you for listening.